You all hear me okay? So my name is Erick Brownstein. I'm the founder of the new agency and here to talk about communication. Max let me know that you guys have this 4-minute thing coming up where you have to get in front of everyone and do something. My hunch is that it makes a few of you uncomfortable. The idea of getting in front of a lot of people to talk is not something that comes naturally to everybody by any stretch. Some people say that public speaking, the fear of public speaking is greater than the fear of death. So my goal for being here, when Max asked me to come, he asked me if I wanted to do this, I said, yeah, my goal of coming here is A, to have some fun. Hopefully I'm not going to put you guys to sleep and there's some cool stuff to show you. Tell you a little bit of my story and why it may be relevant. But it's really about communicating to you guys how important it is to learn to communicate. And that there are skills that go into it. Not that I'm any kind of expert or any kind of master or anything like that, but I spend a lot of my time and I make my living in communicating. And a lot of it's online. A lot of it's in rooms with 10 people, 20 people, 2 people, whatever. But it's about communicating effectively. And so anybody and everybody has something that's important to them to share. And getting that across is really, really important. So I don't care if you're an engineer or an artist or a scientist or a policeman, it doesn't matter. Communicating is really key. And so there's some good things that work that we can be aware of. So this is the why for me that I'm here, is to share some of what I've learned, share some of the resources I've come across, share some of the examples that I think make the points about what works and what doesn't, share some of my story and how that relates to why I'm standing here right now. So my company is called The New Agency. I stumbled across that domain about 5 years ago when I was trying to figure out what the hell I did. And I'm still trying to figure that out. But right now, the new agency connects companies and agencies with different marketing technologies and different services and different creative production companies as well. So just to give you a couple of examples of things that we've worked on. This is a video some of you guys may have seen, and I'll just jump into it.
You would not believe the mother load I just dropped. And that's how I like to keep it. Leaving not a trace that I was ever here, let alone that I just birthed a creamy behemoth from my cavernous bowels. Nothing is worse than stinking up the shared toilet at work, or the toilet at a party, or your lovers at heart. Of course, flushing removes the graphic evidence. Maybe 2 or 3 flushes if your skid marks are as tenacious as mine. What can be done at that subtle scent of a 300-cow dairy farm? Aerosol air fresheners aren't the most effective option, or the healthiest. Trying to mask the stench, giving you a nice blend of Kevlar carnations with just a touch of feces. So, how do you make the world believe your poop doesn't stink? Or in fact that you never poop at all? Poopery. Poopery is the before you go toilet spray, which is proven to trap those embarrassing odours at the source and save relationships. Simply spritz poopery in the bowl to create a film on the water's surface that actually traps the odours in their porcelain prison. And when your little astronauts splash down and make contact with the film, you release poopery's pleasant aromas, so all those around you can smell as a refreshing bouquet of essential oils. Yes, it is a real product. And yes, it really works. We've sold over 4 million bottles. On Amazon alone, there are over 1,000 reviews rating it 4.8 of 5 stars. That's a better Amazon rating than the iPhone 5. If it doesn't completely stop your stench from spreading, send it back for a full refund. Our unconditional stink-free guarantee. If your poo stinks, click here to get your poopery today at poopery.com. So whether you need to pinch a loaf at work, cut a rope at a party, or lay a brick at your boyfriend's, your tasty some smells or prairie dogging it are over. Poopery. Our business is to make it smell like your business never even happened.
So that video on YouTube is now at about, I think, 29 million views or so. And it took that product from doing pretty well to doing really well. And so you imagine you've got these, these people that started this company, they've got a product which is pretty funny and actually works. And they're thinking, how do we communicate it? How do we get it out there? How do we, express this product's attributes? What's its unique selling proposition? Right? That's what they teach you in marketing school. But really what they did is they started with something different. They said, how do we do something really fun? Like, how do we make something funny? And then we can talk about this spray and we're going to sell products. So for them, this was a really key piece of the communication puzzle, which we'll get into quite a bit as I'm talking, which is the why. Where do we start with everything that we're doing? We start with the why. Why am I here? Why should you give a shit about anything I'm saying? When you're in front of this group, when you've got your 4 minutes, why should anybody listen to you? Why should they care? If you have 30 seconds to talk to someone who might fund your business, why should they care? Right? So we're really starting with why. And if there's one thing I'd like you to remember from this whole presentation, it's start with why. Okay? Dollar Shave Club. Another example of a video that we worked on. We worked on the distribution side of this one.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis.
And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, Papa! Stop handing shit you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
Stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
Alright. I think that one's at 19 million views right now on YouTube. He started that company, about 3 people working on it. They've raised, I think, $15 million right now, about 40 employees, and directly attributed to the success of that video. It's creating a whole new industry, and it's completely disrupting the razor industry. They now, I think, have like 3% of the industry. So Gillette and all these others are starting to go, holy crap. This whole model is broken. So once again, humor, fun, start with a why. Let's talk about razors, right? He could have done this in a million different ways. He could have gone out and said, let's talk about razors and how we're going to save you money. But his purpose was to cut through the clutter, have fun, make people laugh. And both of them obviously were trying to tap into this essence of what it takes to be successful online. What does it take to be social? Why do people share content? Once again, why should someone care? Okay? So when Max asked me to come do this, I've been always intrigued by design. Fast Company magazine, one of the magazines that I actually look at, always does a design special, and I was always intrigued by this idea of design. I didn't really understand what the hell it was, so before coming and doing this lecture, I had to look up what is design. And what really caught my attention was this idea of a vision. a vision for what can be. And then it becomes, okay, well, how do you manifest that vision? How do you make it real? What do you do? And so having a vision is really about having a passion or having a why. And so once again, this is going to be something that I keep coming back to. What's the why? So there's something called the Golden Circle. A guy named Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, talks about in a TED Talk, which I encourage you all to watch. It's called Start With Why. And he talks about the center of the circle being why. This is the purpose, this is the vision. He talks about Mac computers and Apple. He talks about Martin Luther King. And he talks about companies that start with this. And for me, one of the things that guides my life is this idea that things can be better. Right? The world can be better, my life can be better, everything can be better. And I think that's what, as humans, kind of drives us. And so whatever we're doing with work, if we can start with what really drives us, no matter what it is, like with Apple computers, it's not, hey, we make great computers, you should buy one. It's, we disrupt the status quo. We make things that are beautiful. Oh, by the way, we make computers and a whole bunch of other stuff, you should buy one. So for me, it's about what can we do to make things better? So I'm going to show you two parts to a speech you guys all know and show you the difference.
It came as the dawn of daybreak.
So I really want you to watch
In the long night
the energy of MLK here.
But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free.
Looking at his speech, kind of getting into it a little.
The life of the Negro is...
Now, this is where it gets interesting, where he's really tapping in to the why and the spirit and the purpose. Just watch his face. Look where he's looking. And imagine why everybody followed this guy.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream.
So you get the sense, right, as that speech progressed, he tapped into something that really exemplified why he was such a great leader. He was really inspiring people with this vision and with this purpose. And so once again, how does this relate to our day-to-day lives? You know, being a leader, whether it's in business or in school or whatever, is really about getting people to share your vision, right? Great CEOs, they get people to believe in what they're doing. They get people to do stuff for free. They get people to do stuff they wouldn't normally do. So as a designer, as an engineer, you know, pulling a team together is going to be about your purpose and your vision and how you inspire them. So part of what I thought was fun when Max asked me to do this, you know, in the description he said, well, you can tell your story too. And it's kind of fun to tell our own story sometimes. So as you'll see, it kind of relates to everything that we're talking about with communication, I hope. Or maybe it's just an opportunity to tell my story. So it started with a crayon drawing where, I didn't do this one, I found it online. You can see the lines are going in different directions. And my earliest memory is of a preschool teacher telling me I should draw in the same direction. And for the fact that I remember that when I was probably 3 years old, it made a big impact. And it really went deep. And I'm not going to get into a psychotherapy session, but clearly things like this matter, right? Someone telling you you're doing something wrong. Now, my name is not Arvin. But my other earliest memory was winning the spelling bee in first grade. I got a lot of good attention for being a smarty pants in school. And that drove me. I got a lot of rewards for getting good grades and doing what I was supposed to do. And you guys probably noticed the little class clown thing. I'm a big advocate for class clowns because class clowns are trying to let the world know they've got something to say and that they need something. So when we get a lot of this attention, I'm not arguing against working hard and doing well. But what happens oftentimes is we get rewarded, and we get rewarded for the wrong things. We get rewarded for performing well and doing what we're supposed to do, as opposed to tapping into our inner genius, into our creativity, and into our passion. And it's that passion that is going to allow you to communicate, and to communicate well. So this is just something that I feel is important for everybody to be aware of, is once again, why are we doing what we're doing? You know, am I up here to get attention? Am I up here to share something? Am I up here if I'm, doing your thing to get a good grade, or am I up here to blow it out of the water and have fun? And by the way, get a good grade. So the whole smarty pants thing, getting good grades, kept me on track for a good long time. I think in 7th grade, my dad got called into school because I had behavior problems. And my class clown kind of thing came to an end because I realized that wasn't going to work. Went to college, got out of college. Most of my friends were going to be investment bankers in New York City. And I saved up some money and I bought a one-way ticket to Southeast Asia. And I had no idea where I was going except to meet my friend who was living on some little island doing dive research. And so that led to about a 1.5 years long, which started as an adventure and led to something else. So I saw monkeys, and I trekked through Borneo and partied with tribes out in the middle of nowhere. Met some pretty interesting people. Jumped off of high things. And had a good old time. That was Tyler. So that was the first part of the trip, was having a good old time. And then I ended up seeing stuff that kind of changed me quite a bit. So this was in Borneo with a tribe called the Penan, a nomadic tribe that lived off the forest. And this was part of the adventure, right? I was there, I was staying with them, I was living in their hut, and it was really cool. But what was really going on was I was seeing these people's lives were getting destroyed because all we could hear in the distance were chainsaws. And they had to travel further and further. And this guy, who was a beast, he was massive. You could just see it in his eyes that he was scared. And he had to take his daughter and put her in a backpack and carry her 2 days to try to get her medicine. And I was sitting there like, I can't help her. I don't know how to help her. And it started shifting things for me in some way or another. And I started getting this sense like, wow, I live in a really special place in America. Maybe there's some other stuff I need to be paying attention to. And I ended up in a monastery in Thailand, where I stayed for about 4 months and got real quiet and went inside and started looking at things. A little different kind of take than with the big split in my mouth. And then I ended up in India for about 6 months. And India blew my mind. And I worked with Mother Teresa at the Home for the Sick and Dying and Destitute, where I wiped dying guys' asses, and I held their hands as they died. And it was really intense. And she was really short, by the way, but powerful. And she was a leader, and she had one purpose, and her purpose was to give love to people. And this was one of the guys that I met. He was a college professor. He spoke English. They found him in a gutter, and they brought him there. And I hung out with him that day. And then I came back the next day, and he was bald and shaved. But all this stuff kind of woke me up. And so I got back, and I did some work doing research around environment, human rights, and ended up working with a group called Rainforest Action Network, which was kind of like Greenpeace, direct action, nonviolent civil disobedience, things like that. And ended up running the International African Rainforest Campaign. So I got to travel to Cameroon and Ghana and work with the local nonprofits as their homes were getting destroyed by mining companies and logging companies. And we were learning a lot about what we could possibly do. And so we started running these big campaigns where we focus on Citigroup and the World Bank and WTO and trying to look at these fundamental causes of why things were so screwed up. And so there's me on the top of that crane. I don't know if any of you guys remember, this is way before your time, but they called it the Battle of Seattle, where the WTO, the World Trade Organization, brought the delegates from around the world to Seattle, and 60,000 people showed up to shut the city down and protest them. And our group, Rainforest Action Network, the day before, we hung this banner. That was one of about a dozen times that I got arrested doing nonviolent civil disobedience. But it turned into quite an adventure. If you ever want to see some pretty crazy footage, you can search it on YouTube, I'm sure, it's the WTO in Seattle. But we shut the city down so effectively that the police called in the National Guard, and a lot of people got pretty messed up. It was pretty heavy. So anyway, that then led me to work with a bank. The CEO of a bank called Advanta tracked me down through some article that got written. And he said, look, I'm really into causes and doing things that are good. He said, would you like to work with me and help me understand this online world? I don't get it. This is 2004. I need someone who doesn't know the first thing about banking. I've got 2,500 employees who do. Can you work with me? And you can do stuff that matters. I don't know what it is, but I need someone who thinks different. And I said, sure. He said, let's do a 6-week test and see how it goes. So I ended up working with him as a full-time consultant. I lived in LA, the bank was in Philly for 7 years. And we built an innovation team, and we built all kinds of different projects that were really unique. So Kiva, for example, I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but Kiva is a really cool organization that does microcredit loans to poor people around the world, entrepreneurs around the world. So we did the first corporate partnership with Kiva, where anytime you use this credit card to make a donation, or really a loan, the bank would double the loan. It was a really cool program, got a lot of buzz, a lot of attention, made a difference. This was actually how I met Max. We created something called Idea Blob, which was where people could win $10,000 a month for the best idea that got the most votes. We built a community of about 250,000 people. And most of the things that happened were cool, good ideas, like socially entrepreneurial ideas, ideas that made a difference. And we turned that into something called Blob Live, which was like open mic night for entrepreneurs. So this was in 2008, 2009, when the recession hit, so entrepreneurs were looking for everything they could get. So we would have open mic nights in California and LA and in Philadelphia, and it would be in a bar, or it would be in some other space, and we'd get anywhere between 30 and 100 people. And people would come up and they'd have 90 seconds to pitch their idea and ask a question. And people in the audience could help them. Or people watching online, because we were live streaming it, could help them because we were projecting the tweets with hashtags up on the wall. And so we found that people, for the most part, were really bad at pitching in 90 seconds. Having 90 seconds to share your idea and clearly get it across is a lot harder than people think. answering questions that people ask you and thinking on your feet was a lot harder than people thought. So once again, coming back to this why, this golden circle of having a purpose about why you're talking, or about why you're writing, or about why you're doing anything. So then we get into the how, right? Okay, so here's why we're doing this, and now here's how we're doing this. Once again, it's this second part, right? Now we're getting into the action side. How are we going to manifest the vision? So this is like the efficiency slide. Like, how do we be effective? How do we get things done? It's this all about that. So once again, here's a video that I want to show you that I thought was really interesting in that how they're getting a message across. Right? So the first two that we looked at were products, small brands. A lot of what I do is work with bigger brands and help them do something that matters. Right? How does a brand, whether it's a shampoo brand or a maxi pad brand or a car brand, actually do something that matters?
Hi, Erin.
Hi.
Okay, so I'm going to just give you some actions to do, and just do the first thing that comes to mind. Show me what it looks like to run like a girl.
Here.
Show me what it looks like to fight like a girl. Now throw like a girl.
Aww.
My name is Dakota, and I'm 10 years old.
Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. Throw like a girl. Fight like a girl. What does it mean to you when I say run like a girl?
It means run fast as you can.
So do you think you just insulted your sister?
No. I mean, yeah, insulted girls, but not my sister. Actually, I don't know what it really, if it's a bad thing or a good thing. It sounds like a bad thing. It sounds like you're trying to humiliate someone.
So when they're in that vulnerable time, between 10 and 12, how do you think it affects them when somebody uses like a girl as an insult?
I think it definitely drops their self-confidence and really puts them down, because during that time they're already trying to figure themselves out, and when somebody says you hit like a girl, it's like, well, what does that mean? Because they think they're a strong person. It's kind of like telling them that they're weak and they're not as good as them.
And what advice do you have to young girls who are told they run like a girl, kick like a girl, hit like a girl, swim like a girl?
Keep doing it because it's working. If somebody else says that running like a girl or kicking like a girl or shooting like a girl is something that you shouldn't be doing, that's their problem. Because if you're still scoring and you're still getting to the ball on time and you're still being first, you're doing it right. It doesn't matter what they say. I mean, yes, I kick like a girl and I swim like a girl and I walk like a girl and I wake up in the morning like a girl because I am a girl. And that is not something that I should be ashamed of. So I'm going to do it anyway. That's what they should do.
If I asked you to run like a girl now, would you do it differently?
I would run like myself.
Would you like a chance to read it?
Why can't run like a girl also mean win the race?
So, I like when brands make cool content. They've got the resources to do it, and if they're speaking to the right people, it makes sense for them. So the what? The what in my world around online marketing and content is usually around the content. And I'm taking this slide from a guy named Jonah Peretti, the CEO of BuzzFeed. And I love the analogy that he made here. He said, which is higher quality? Which is higher content? Better content? Judaism or Mormonism? You could argue either way. If you're a Mormon, you're certainly going to think Mormonism. If you're a Jew, you're going to think Judaism. But maybe it's not really about the content if your goal, it depends on what your goals are. So Mormonism has an evangelical side to it, right, where they want new members. Jews don't. So this slide is pretty cool, right? It shows the growth of the religions. Now, is it because of the quality of the content, or is it because of the distribution and the means by which they're pushing the message? Right? Depending on the purpose, it may just be a question of how. If the purpose is to spread the word, then that how becomes really important. So this is probably one of my other main points that I'd like to make, is that we're all salespeople. And to sell is human. And one of the books that's made a big impact on me is called To Sell is Human, and it's by Dan Pink. The problem with sales is that everyone thinks of these guys and things like this. No one wants to be that guy. I mean, maybe some people do. I do, and I don't. But selling is about persuading. And if you believe in something and you know you've got something really valuable, then you want to persuade someone. And so you need to know all the tools and all the tricks and all the things that you can do to convince someone. And it doesn't have to come across as cheesy and slimy and crappy, especially if you believe in the value of what you have. So selling is a skill, just like communicating is a skill, and communicating is probably the most important skill to sell. And so I highly recommend this book for a million different reasons. So I'm going to go through some of the tools or tricks or insights or whatever that I found to be really useful in communicating, in achieving the goals that I set when I'm doing my work. So if I'm working with a company or with an agency or whatever. One of the things that really stuck with me years and years ago was when I was really in the sort of heart of the radical work I was doing with the environment and human rights. I spent an hour talking about corporate power and why it was at the root of all the problems of the world. And I was talking to this very wise woman, and after about an hour, she said, "You know what? You convinced me. You're right. Now you got to touch my heart if you want me to do anything." And so, focusing on the emotional is probably the most powerful thing you can do in any communication. And emotions can be humor, right? Those first two videos that I showed. They can be something that touches you in another way that you feel is really meaningful. It can be sad. It can be whatever that goes beyond the mind. And when we think about that golden circle of the why and the how and the what, you know, our newest brain is the rational. It's where we figure stuff out and think through things. The more primitive brain is the emotional. It's where we make gut decisions. It's when you just know something or you feel something. So when you can communicate that to somebody, that's what's going to get them to do something. That's what's going to get them to follow you or share that belief or share that emotion. So when you think about the kind of stuff that people share, it's really always emotional. Like, what do you put on your Facebook wall if you're putting something on Facebook? What kind of link do you share? You know, my aunt must put out 3 freaking dog photos a day on her Facebook page, because that's what touches her, right? Her kid's grown up and out of the house, so now all her attention goes to dogs. I'm going to read this one to you just to make sure. Nate, I overheard your phone conversation with Mike last night about your plans to come out to me. The only thing I need you to plan is to bring home OJ and bread after class. We are out, like you, now. I've known you were gay since you were 6. I've loved you since you were born. Dad. P.S. Your mom and I think you and Mike make a cute couple. Now, as a parent, this one like just knocked me backwards. And this was all over, you know, all my friends' social walls and Facebook and stuff. This one spoke to me, spoke to other parents, purely at that emotional level. This one, once again, I don't know if you guys have all seen this or not, but 8-year-old girl with leukemia, given less than 2 weeks to live, her last wish was to see Christmas Carol. After they all sang, Delaney Laney Brown's Facebook page was updated with this picture. Quote, I can hear you now. Love you. Once again, pure emotional stuff, right, that gets spread and shared. Now, this doesn't necessarily relate to everything you're going to be doing in your career and in your work or whatever, but these things are important things to remember. And I'm just showing you these because they may be the things that help you remember, oh, if I'm sharing something or I want something to have an effect, think about the emotional impact that it's having on people. And emotions, like I said, can be anything.
Stop licking your banana in my face. I don't even want it. Just kidding. I got it. It's Stop licking your banana in my face. I don't even want it. Just kidding. I got it.
I watched that about 10 times. And my 10-year-old found that, which I thought was awesome. So the why, the how, the what. Okay? Another thing that's really important when you're communicating, same kind of image of the bullseye, is who are you talking to? Who is your target audience? It's incredible how often people forget this fundamentally simple thing, because they focus on their own message and what they have to say. I want to talk about this, and I'm going to talk about it, and I'm not going to think about who I'm talking to. But every audience is different, right? If you're speaking at an old age home to a bunch of old ladies, you're going to speak differently than you are if you're speaking at a elementary school. If you're an advertiser or a marketer, you got to be thinking really clearly about who it is you're talking to. And that doesn't mean that your message can't resonate with that target market and their friends, and even beyond that, other people. But knowing who you're talking to, even if it's a small group of people that can evangelize your product, your idea, or whatever, it's a crucial, crucial thing to keep in mind. Who are you talking to? So once again, it's that why are you doing it, right? Can you use emotion to get your message across? And who are you talking to? This to me is a really good example of being very clear about the target market. Once again, a big brand doing something that I thought was pretty cool.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere, and their tears are filling out their glasses, no expression, no
Still don't get the whipping. But, you know, shampoo. So they knew who they were talking to, right? They're talking to young women, young professional women. That's their target market. But clearly that's resonating with a much broader audience. I mean, it resonates with me, and I don't have much use for shampoo. McDonald's example. Who are they trying to attract with that ad? Right? They're not trying to attract the 50-year-old construction guy necessarily who already eats there. They're trying to attract someone maybe like me, and they're trying to let me know they've not only got Wi-Fi, but maybe they have good coffee. Maybe it's another place I could sit instead of a Starbucks. Not sure that's probably what I'm going to do, but interesting to think about who their target is, right? Who are they speaking to when their ad agency came up with this idea? Another example. Not only is it important to be aware of who you're speaking to, but it's really important to be clear about what you do. How many times have you gone to a website and you have no clue what they do? And you're trying to figure out what the company does, or what the technology does, or what their app does, or whatever. Right? So this is a project that I'm involved with. That's actually a lot of fun. And the key, this is, you know, a one sheet that we're going to be handing out at this conference up in Portland that we're going to. The key for us was we just want everyone to know exactly what the hell we do. And that was the goal of this one sheet, right? People there that are looking for online marketing, we're the ones that you want to go to. So once again, just clarity, another piece to this puzzle of exactly what you do. Don't imagine that people want to figure it out. Be really clear. So this is, once again, part of this whole how part of the communication puzzle. Like, how do we do this? I have no idea how I stumbled across this book online. But what caught me was the little description up above, and then somehow, part of the fun of doing this kind of lecture is doing research on photos and stuff. But the elevator pitch, I'm sure you guys have all heard of the elevator pitch. The idea of the elevator pitch is you've got 30 seconds in the elevator with the CEO of the company, and you've got to share your idea before you get to his floor. Or you've got an idea for a startup, and you've got, you know, the super angel investor, and you've got 30 seconds to share your idea with them. So the elevator pitch can take a lot of forms. It can take a 15-second form, it can take a 30-second form, it can take a minute form. But the idea of the elevator pitch is to hone it so you are super on point about what you do or what your product is, or in this case, what your book is about. So Roz, the author of the book, in this interview, first said, so what's the elevator pitch about your book? And she said what she said, you know, this is what it's about. Boom, 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 boom. Done. So anytime you're working on anything, nail your elevator pitch, get it down. So when someone says, what's your product, what's your project, you can just hit it. So when you've got your 4 minutes, it's a 4-minute, it's a little bit more than an elevator pitch. But you want to have that version of it ready too. It's another sort of example of a tool in that Dan Pink book. This is kind of the source code for Pixar movies. So pretty much every Pixar movie that they've ever made has been a huge success. And when they were talking, or Dan Pink was doing an interview with the creative director, or whatever the title would be at Pixar, she said, well, we have a code for how it works. You guys can read it, but the essence of it is about the power of story and episodes as opposed to rational arguments. So, similar to what we were talking about before with emotions versus rationality. But the idea here is that when you've got your 4 minutes to pitch, think of it as a story. Think of it as this format. It works. Plug it in. Doesn't matter what you're doing or talking about, whether it's a product, an idea, anything. Another little piece of your lives, if it's not already, is email. I kind of live and die by email. I send a lot of emails. And when I wear a sales hat, I have to get really thick skin about people not replying to my emails. But I thought this was really fascinating. Of all the emails that Obama sent, this one got opened more than any other one. And the subject was, hey. And the idea was that there was 2 emails that worked really well as subject lines. One was utility, something that worked, something that was really useful, some piece of information that you knew someone needed, and curiosity, where they would go, what? What is that? I have a little thing that I do where if I send someone an email after they've given me permission, after about the 3rd time of them not replying, I put something like sled dog in the subject line. And I say, look, one of my spirit animals is the sled dog, which means I just kind of don't give up. So if you're not interested, you can just let me know. And 90% of the time, I get someone who says, hey, sorry, I was really busy, really busy. It's like, little tricks, right? Mess around with stuff, get people interested, be human. Think about what email you would open, or what would intrigue you. So now we're going to get into a little bit of I don't know if I would call it real world, because everything I was talking about is real, but the world that I live in as far as making a living and running a digital agency. So there's all kinds of studies out there about what kind of ads work, especially in mobile, relevancy, things that are near you, and so on. And it's once again amazing how many advertisers and how many brands completely don't get it. And they just send you all the same crap that you just immediately discard. But when they do it right, people actually pay attention. And they're paying attention because the person who's speaking to them is paying attention. So, I really feel like going through all this. But one of the things that I thought was real interesting about this piece was that when you hit someone with the right message and they actually look at it, they'll do what you want them to do. So the persuasion here is to try and get someone to come into a store. This is kind of what an ad might look like that's relevant to someone when we're serving it only when it's over 90 degrees in a location that's near them, where they've already been a fan of the Walmart page. So like I said, it's not the sexiest, most meaningful stuff in the world, but it's good lessons for no matter what they're doing. So that company is one of the companies I work with. This is another company I work with that does the content creation and the distribution, the Poopery ad that I showed you, and this one, which I just thought would be a fun one to show if you haven't seen it. We were tasked with promoting Fruit Ninja, the app. And it was doing okay. It was about 45th or 46th at its height in the App Store. And so we did this video.
Remember,
Why did I show that? Where was I? Oh, right. So that's one of the companies I work for. Shareability. That's one of the other things I think is really important to remember. What would you share? You know, it really, working in this, quote, kind of viral video world, I do a lot of stuff with YouTube. People always ask from these agencies and brands, like, well, what is a viral video? You know, how do you make one? What's shareable? And it comes down to, it's like, well, what would you share? You know, what would catch your attention and make you put it somewhere? It's got to be good. It's got to be real. It gets real interesting working with brands that are starting to get some of this stuff. BuzzFeed does a lot with social ads now. This is some of the stuff they're doing with Virgin when they got going with their whole social ads. You know, the idea was create content that people would share, relate it to the brand, and see the results. And that kind of is gold for marketers, that red area. That's where people are sharing your ads, your content, things about you. It's like where they're evangelizing on your behalf. Toyota hybrids. So I'm going to show you, I think this is the last video. So I spend, you know, probably more time than I'd like dealing with crap that I don't care about. Tostitos, Pepsi, things like that. And in my heart, what I want to be doing and what I do more and more is try to take all these tools and all this understanding and apply it towards things that matter. And so, you know, this is me being honest, that as you go through your lives, you know, there's always that voice of going, you should be doing more, you should be doing things that matter, you should be doing better. And it's to be at, you know, at peace at one level that you're always going to be striving to do better and do more meaningful things, because really at the end of the day, when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to remember anything about anything except who you helped. So when I left San Francisco and the nonprofit world to come down here, a lot of it had to do with learning tools to be more effective and learning about the online world, learning about marketing, learning about advertising, learning about the entertainment industry. Because to me, that's the most powerful force in the world as far as any tools go. So this is a project that we worked on that I've been increasingly bringing to brands and to nonprofits, where they can work together to do stuff that actually makes a real difference.
Odie and I first met when we were in cancer treatment together at St. Jude. I I remember his eyes the most, looking into them and just seeing how strong he was. There was something about us that connected us really deeply. I think everyone around us could see that.
Oh, now you got to do her already. You little chapter.
In our last conversation, I just decided to skip all the small talk. There was no point. I said, Odie, I just really want you to know, for me, having cancer was worth it because I got to know you. He kind of shifted around, which I'm sure was painful for him. He opened his eyes completely and he looked into my eyes and he said, Maggie, I want you to know that having cancer and dying from it was worth it because I got to know you.
I'm gonna miss you, Maggie.
I want to miss you too.
You was.
When I finally realized that Odie was really gone, that he wasn't coming back, I felt really alone. I'm on this trip to Dallas to share our story at a St. Jude fundraiser. But I think that no matter where I go or what I say, it's not going to bring Odie back.
So now let me introduce to you a true St. Jude miracle. Her name is Maggie Cupid. Come on up here, Maggie, and I want you to hear this story.
I'm not going to stand here and tell you that having cancer was easy, but even on some of the days that I felt like I couldn't go on any longer, St. Jude found a way to put the life back in me. One way it did this was by introducing me to a little boy named Odie. I've told the world about Odie since the first. In that moment, looking out at the audience and seeing how moved they are, I realized I feel him on that stage. He's right there with me. I'm grateful to God, grateful to science, but above all, I am grateful to Odie and what he taught me. Thanks. This one's for you, Odie.
So what was interesting about this was that this was part of Expedia's ad campaign. So you have a brand like Expedia that's got a big old ad budget, and they're going to be spending money on ads. And they come up with this concept of why do people travel? And it's not just to go to places, but it's to find things in themselves. So find your strength. They did one called Find Your Understanding, which was a older Jewish guy traveling out west to go to his daughter's wedding, and it turns out his daughter is marrying another woman. They did Find Your Perspective, a bunch of different things. The idea, though, is Expedia paid for the production, Expedia paid for the guaranteed distribution of the video, and then they matched up to $250,000 for St. Jude's. And it raised $250,000. It got exposure for St. Jude's. It got exposure for Expedia. So to me, that was a really cool way to combine a brand, why they were advertising, and something that actually mattered. So this is something that, I always kind of try to remember when, like I said, I'm being hard on myself for doing stuff that I don't think is important. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to do stuff that's important. And this is the other thing I'm going to leave you guys with. Join Toastmasters. Toastmasters is a really interesting organization that has thousands and thousands of chapters around the world. They've been around since like 1915 or something. And it's one of the only places that you'll ever have an opportunity to practice public speaking. in a very safe way and in a very kind of low-key way. I think it costs like $40 a year. But it's so useful. And I don't care if you ever give a speech in your whole life, it's so useful to be able to speak in front of people and get over the fear. And the only way to do that is by practicing. And so Toastmasters gives you this really bizarre opportunity to practice. And they do some wacky things where you have like 2 minutes and someone asks you a random question, like, tell us about the novel you just wrote. Or, you know, tell us what it's like to have 3 dads. And you've got 2 minutes to answer on your feet in front of a bunch of strangers. You can also practice 5-minute speeches, and you can practice giving feedback on other people's speeches. Super useful, super important.
Stop leaving your banana in my face. I don't think you want it. Just kidding. I got it.
There we go. That's all I got. I went an hour. We said Max told me we had an hour and a half. That we should leave time for questions and discussion or anything like that. So anything that you guys have as a question now, feel free. You can always email me. I actually reply to every email no matter what. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen. It was fun to put that together and come here and talk and share some stuff, share my story. So thank you.
Any questions? Questions? Yes. Just briefly, you was kind of saying about your schooling, or kind of what got. Well, I know that you did nonprofit, but just kind of what kind of directed you into what you wanted to do.
Well, I'm not really sure I know what I want to do yet. I know I want to combine all this stuff in things that matter to me. But my schooling was, you know, I went to college because we were supposed to go to college. I didn't have any idea of what I really wanted to do. I just got rewarded because I got good grades all the time. So I got into a good school, and the major I picked was a major that I had a bunch of requirements done for already. So I did economics thinking that was probably a good major if I wanted to make money, because that was kind of the only thing I could think of that mattered. And as I went through school and kind of opened my eyes a little, I realized that wasn't the most important thing for me. But then I was kind of stuck with economics because I was already done with it. So my education really came after school and out in the world. I'll touch on it. I'm not going to get too into it. Happy to talk more about it. But I think the educational system in general does a pretty poor job of preparing people for helping them figure out what they really want to do and what they're good at. It rewards people for taking tests well and performing well. And I think a lot of times it kills creativity. And it takes a really strong young person to not allow that to happen, which is why I advocate for class clowns. I actually don't send my kids to school. We homeschool. And like I said, I could kind of talk all day long about school. But I think at the end of the day, if you have resources available to you, it doesn't matter what your major is, just do what you really want to do. Follow your gut.
When you're touring overseas, or just visiting overseas, is there a place that was most significant to you?
Yeah, I mean, I saved up $5,000 and I lived off of $5,000 for a year and a half. And so I did it real cheap. And I would go one place and stay there for 5 weeks or 6 weeks and then go to another place and so on. The Mother Teresa's home for the sick and dying and destitute blew my mind for a million different reasons. You know, I flew into Calcutta at midnight and it's another world to begin with, and then to go to the sort of heart of that city and the most despairing place, and then find someone who all they care about is being of service, and they know that's all that matters in this world, and that's all they do, was mind-blowing and super inspiring. So for sure, India.